What did the disciples think they saw on the Sea of Galilee? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Mark on walking through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Mark chapter 6. We're going to be reading from verses 45 to 56. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Mark chapter 6, beginning at verse 45. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he sent the multitude away. And when he had sent them away, he departed to the mountain to pray. Now when evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Then he saw them straining at rowing, for the wind was against them. Now about the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea, and would have passed them by. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost, and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid. Then he went up into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. And they were greatly amazed in themselves beyond measure, and marveled, for they had not understood about the loaves, because their heart was hardened. When they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret, and anchored there. And when they came out of the boat, immediately the people recognized him, ran through that whole surrounding region, and began to carry about on beds those who were sick to wherever they heard he was. Wherever he entered, into villages, cities, or the country, they laid the sick in their marketplaces and begged him that they might just touch the hem of his garment. And as many touched him were made well. In the last episode, we have Jesus feeding over 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus did not do this as a way to teach the people the gospel. He did so because they had already spent the day with him learning the gospel, and out of compassion, he decided to provide them a meal. After this, Mark said that Jesus immediately sent the disciples into a boat while he went into the mountain to pray. So when evening had come, while Jesus was on the land, and the disciples were in the middle of the Sea of Galilee, a windstorm whipped up, which made it difficult for the disciples to row. Mark then tells us that the fourth watch of the night, Jesus came to them walking on the sea. The Romans divided the night into 4 3-hour segments, and so we're talking about the time between 3 and 6 a.m. Why did Jesus wait so long to come to the aid of his disciples? We're not entirely sure. Perhaps he needed that much time to pray, or perhaps Jesus was testing the faith of the disciples. Since Mark doesn't tell us, it's not important to know why Jesus waited. We just need to know that he did wait. In the darkness of the storm, all the disciples see in the sea is a dark figure approaching them. They think it is a ghost or a spirit. That ghosts are referenced in scriptures does not prove that ghosts roam this earth, but it does show us that people at that time believed that ghosts roamed this earth. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 7 would teach us that spirits return to God at death. They do not remain here to haunt the living. Not understanding what they were seeing, it is only natural that the disciples were afraid. Trying to calm their fears, Jesus calls out to them saying, Be of good cheer, for it is I. Mark leaves out of the story the part where Peter gets into the water and attempts to walk on the water to Jesus before sinking due to a lack of faith. This story was obviously not important for Mark's narrative, so he simply states that once Jesus talked with them, he got into the boat, which does agree with Matthew. When Jesus got into the boat, the storm stopped, and the disciples were again amazed. Mark tells us that this is because they did not understand about the loaves, for their heart was hardened. All that Mark is saying here is that in all of the excitement, they had forgotten about what Jesus had done just hours earlier. And had they remembered this, they shouldn't have been amazed that he could walk on water. Before moving on, though, sadly there are some who charge that Jesus didn't really walk on the water. He was merely stepping on stones. This would not be possible, for the boat was not near the shore. It was in the middle of the sea, so there would be no stones to step on. This is a miracle like other miracles Jesus performed. We can choose to believe or disbelieve them, but our choice will have consequences, for if Jesus didn't have the power to walk on water, he also doesn't have the power to save us from our sins, which means that we are still lost and without hope. This miracle is believable because of the one who did it, namely God himself. Coming now to verse 53, we find that when they had finished their crossing of the Sea of Galilee, they came to the land of Gennesaret. What land is this? It is the land of Galilee. Sometimes the Sea of Galilee is known as the Sea of Gennesaret. So this is how we know this. When Jesus got there, the people of that place recognized who he was, for by that time he was quite the famous teacher. What did these people do? They sent out to all the surrounding regions and brought all that were sick to him in order to be healed. These people didn't demand that Jesus heal them. They begged that Jesus would heal them. And if he wouldn't touch them directly, that they could touch but the hem of his garment and be healed like the woman with the issue of blood did in Mark 5. Jesus had compassion on them, so he healed them, teaching us that even though we can't perform miracles today, we too should have compassion on people and help them in whatever way we can. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Mark chapter 7, verses 1 to 13, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.